Only one more game to go at the Pat Patterson Thanksgiving tip-off. It's Minnetonka and Lakeville South. I'm Mike Peden. He's Pat Barrett. Pat, Minnetonka, the favorite this year, at least in preseason, to win the Class 4A state championship. And a big reason for that, the return of a fully healthy lineup, particularly the big-name players, Lanelle Wright, Tori McKinney, and Aaliyah Crump.
If McKinney comes back totally healthy, obviously that's a gigantic boost for their lineup. They missed her all last year. There's no doubt about it.
And they go up against the Lakeville South team that has some talent, a D1 commit in Finley Ohnstad, but it feels like for the longest time they haven't been able to get the big one, get the big win to take on Lakeville North. Or
I saw him at Christmas time last year, and it was against lower class teams at Hill Murray, and they dominated.
Until the Minnetonka game.
And then got to Minnetonka, and from then on, they weren't the same team, it didn't seem like. And they haven't figured out how to get by North.
That, not to say they can't do it, but Lakeville South, they've got a little work cut out for them. But they certainly have some talent in the wings. The starters for the two sides, Lakeville South, Finley Ohnstad, Audrey Schmidtke, Anna Goodman, Danny Coleman, and Caitlin Beauchamp. Minnetonka will start Harley Woke, Lanelle Wright, Tori McKinney, Aaliyah Crump, and Grace Hamdorf. Tori McKinney didn't return to the Minnetonka lineup until late last year. And in that brutal Section 2, it was Eden Prairie who got out of there. That hasn't changed. Even though Edina moved from 2 to 6, you still got to deal with Prior Lake, a sleeper team. Eden Prairie, they're always in the mix. And Chaska, they picked up a big win over Lakeville South and Rochester Mayo. They have a new coaching staff, but so far Chaska's off to a good start.
Shakope's been very good in that section the last few years also, so I think that's the toughest 4A section in the state, top to bottom.
Here we go, Minnetonka wearing the black, Lakeville South wearing the white in our final game of the day. Minnetonka beat Centennial yesterday, 58-38, using that patented defensive maneuvers. Brian Cosgriff, every team he's coached, they played that lockdown defense from the baseline on.
He gets them to play hard. There's no doubt about it at both ends of the floor. If you do that consistently, you're going to have a chance in most games.
And I remember last year after the announcement that he was returning after taking a year off, you probably know what happened at Minnetonka that led to the coaching change. As we get a steal, there's Aaliyah Crump, who had a sensational summer season, got to play with the USA Junior National Team, I believe at U16. She gets on the board here, but after everything Minnetonka went through a couple of years ago, I don't think you could ask for a better person to lead that transition than Brian Cosgriff.
He's in our Mount Rushmore, there's no doubt about it. And if I had a kid, that's who I'd want coaching him.
It was a surreal moment last year when he had the conference series with Hopkins. He won a lot of state titles as Lakeville South misses the 3. Won a lot and hoping to do the same at Minnetonka. Going underneath is Harley Woke, and Minnetonka utilizing that speed and quickness early on.
I don't think this is a great matchup for Lakeville South tonight. They're going to have to control the tempo of this game and keep Minnetonka from getting out and running.
And Minnetonka, much like Hopkins, they've got a few tough cookies on the schedule. You'll see them at the Tip-Off Classic. They take on Prior Lake, if I'm correct, or
I can't remember. I'll have to check the schedule.
I know they play each other, maybe not at the tip-off, but they do play each other.
You keep the show going. I'll find it for you.
Well, Tori McKinney's going to keep the show going. Look at her sprint down court. That is what Minnetonka missed significantly last year. There's speed, and then there's that. Warp speed.
They've got Some great players. They're going to be a lot of fun to watch this year.
And Tori McKinney, as you may know, committed to Minnesota. Another in-state player staying home with the Gophers, Don White. Off to a solid start. You know, the UConn game didn't work out so well. Even though we were talking about it earlier with non-conference games, how you schedule, maybe not a lot of teams that are indicative of where the Gophers are, but I have heard of some improvements defensively, things like that, and Tori McKinney, I think, will be an excellent addition at Minnesota.
I had a chance to watch the Gophers play UConn last week, and you know what? They played really good defense. They didn't play a lot of players,
yes.
So they didn't go very deep. Struggled offensively, but it really looked like strategy-wise she was trying to slow the tempo down, hoping they could hit some threes. They stayed in the first half. Neither team shot the ball very well for the game because the defense was outstanding.
Well, and that's what I've heard. Minnesota's defense much improved. Tori McKinney with the steal. Wright pulls up. Not there, but Hamdorf is there for the cleanup. And Minnetonka up 8-0. Maybe not a surprise considering where Minnetonka is. Lakeville South, like you noted, they've been in the shadows of Lakeville North for all those years. A few times in the breakdown, you'll see reports suggesting maybe this is their year. Maybe they finally can break through, but it's been a tough slog.
I think Lakeville North's got a pretty good team again this year. Got the good post inside, and Andy Birkbaum back coaching them. Shelley Clemens was outstanding for him, and Andy before that was top of the list for sure.
And Andy spent a year as an assistant with Brian Cosgriff at Minnetonka. That took me back, seeing Andy Birkbaum return to Lakeville North after a long absence. Here's McKinney, can't flip it in. Crump for three. Crump, the highest rated Minnesota player in her class, the 2025 group.
Obviously, athletically, McKinney being back healthy helps him a gigantic amount, but just in watching a couple of minutes of play, she's looking to get other people involved. And I'd say that's where you can clearly see that's one of her strengths. And that's where Crump, I think, has to continue to improve at. I think individually she's got outstanding skills. It's finding a way to involve everyone else. And that's what the great players do. They make everybody else better.
Bree Martin pulls up from about 16. Comes up short. Anna Goodman scrapping for it. Danny Coleman lunging underneath. Tori McKinney. She isn't big in terms of her stature. Aaliyah Crump playing big, though. But I see Tori McKinney again providing that presence that Minnetonka missed so much of last year. Lakeville South scoring in transition. Danny Coleman with their second field goal.
I don't think Lakeville South wants to get into a run and gun with Minnetonka tonight. Obviously, take your advantage when you have it. But otherwise, I don't think athletically they're going to match up person to person as well if it gets to be a run and gun game.
If there is any team that doesn't have to worry about the shot clock, it's Minnetonka. And likewise, if Brian Cosgrove were still at Hopkins and all the teams he fielded there over the years, they played just as fast. Here's Martin, the handoff, and a walk on Finley Ohnstad. Ohnstad going to K-State, and let's not discount them. They got that big win over Iowa a little while ago.
2 years in a row.
And a healthy Aoka Lee, a big part of that.
She's had a really nice career for Kansas State.
And a reminder, you and I were talking before the game that you don't always have to go to the 4A school to make a difference. I mean, I'm going to get the small school games at the Tip-Off Classic, but for me, hey, that's a chance to see some players I might not otherwise see.
See, to me, that's the fallacy, is you don't have to play for the biggest and best teams. The good programs are going to find you.
Here's McKinney going baseline too strong. Well, Jordan Zubich, he's going to North Carolina. They're no slouch.
They've had a really nice program, and they really benefited from some outstanding Minnesota players.
Usby,
Taylor Conan first, Usby now.
Deja Kelly having a terrific career in the baby blue. We had a foul on Lanelle Wright there, and free throws coming for Lakeville South. Audrey Schmidtke to the line. We know Madden Greenway is going to go somewhere. Addie Mack is going to go somewhere. They're both in 2A. Tori Erline will probably go somewhere.
And she's at Crosby Ironton. And you know she's going to go somewhere.
Rebecca
big.
Dahlman was at Bram. And Carly Wagner, New Richland. So they found their way to D1 basketball. One of my good friends, Onio Seminum, went to Maranatha, which was Class A at the time. Lakeville South missing that lead pass there. I wonder, Pat, if that's why you're suggesting Lakeville South doesn't want to make it a track meet, because they know Minnetonka has the agility to keep up with them on the run.
They just, when the other team's got better athletes, you can't get into a track meet with them. You know, from my old days against Osseo, they always had better athletes, and you just couldn't afford to get into a running game with them because they love that. You can see just in a couple minutes of Minnetonka here, they like the fast pace. They'd be happy to see it an up and down game.
Well, I remember those days at Osseo. Some of them, maybe not the old days. Here's McKinney. Lakeville South forgot about her. Lanelle Wright says, I'll take that assist any day.
That was an easy one.
Bree Martin for three. Swish. I think, Pat, if you're Lakeville South, again, you don't want to run a brisk pace, but the longer you can hang around Minnetonka, the better chance you have.
That's your hope. Let's see if we get to the last 5 minutes and have it be a ball game.
Minnetonka says, right back at you. Sydney Cummings scoring for the Skippers. Martin. Tie up, and the arrow favoring Minnetonka. Minnetonka, we were talking about shadows a little while ago. For a long time, they were in the shadow. I think they shared the same section with Hopkins before moving to 2.
They did. When they moved to 2, that was the year they ended up beating Hopkins. They beat They beat Shakopee.
Right.
And Taylor Conan in a great section final game. That's one of the best girls basketball games I've seen in this state. And then ended up beating Hopkins in the championship.
And they were building their way up. Brian Cosgriff again taking over, and I remember talking with Lanelle and Aaliyah after that first weekend, and they effectively told me they were just moving forward. And Brian, for example, when he was asked about what happened before, he said, I wasn't there, so I didn't bother looking it up. Aaliyah Crump looking up that 3, but it won't connect. Lakeville South, they get the pass in, but they'll have to run a set. Step back 3. Missing the mark there was Finley Ohnstad. Tough start for the K-State commit.
I'm sure you feel the pressure when you know you're against one of the better teams in the state to step up and make plays. Again, it's early in the season.
A long way between now and March. Championships aren't won at this time of the year, but you can get yourself on the right track. Crump on the fadeaway, too strong. Last touched by Minnetonka. And this is a team that added a little more depth as well. 5-second call. Well, there's another staple. You saw it at Hopkins just about every year. They play defense from that baseline. They don't lay back.
That's a Brian Cosgrove team right there. Knew the other team's inbound plays and wouldn't let them get the ball inbounds.
But I was going to say, the depth, it took a bit of a hit because it looks like she's out for now. Crump looking for help. And Lakeville South comes up with the turnover. Crump takes it back, and we'll take it in for 2. Their depth hopefully will return to full strength. Aaliyah Thornton-Fay, I know, had a pretty solid AAU season with Minnesota Stars and had to deal with some back ailments last year. That limited her effectiveness or time. She's a sophomore, but has put in a lot of work. Hopefully you'll see her in uniform sooner before later. 5 to shoot for Lakeville South. Another tough shot. That was McKinney. No shot clock violation. McKinney got possession beforehand, so she can go coast to coast. Won't finish there. Ohnstad pulls up from 14. Swish. That's her first field goal.
From what I saw last year, she was their best player, and they need her to step up and make plays if they're going to stay with Minnetonka.
CC Nessa, 3-ball, corner pocket. Well, I would hope Ohnstad would be one of the better players if she's going to K-State. They've had a few athletes make their way through. Lakeville South turns it over. Brittany Chambers, I believe, went to Kansas State several years ago.
She had one of the most memorable individual games I've ever seen at our state tournament in the semis that one year. Had 47.
A record that was later broken, I believe, by Carly Wagner.
I believe Carly Wagner had 50 in the state tournament against Dolman.
I remember, I was there covering that one.
That might be my favorite game I've ever watched, watching those two go at it.
Aaliyah Crump, well, she's given me a lot of candidates for favorite plays. Hitting the fadeaway, that's never an easy shot to put down. It takes a lot of talent and precision to hit those fadeaways.
It does. And that would have been Wagner and Dolman going head-to-head hitting those kind of plays.
Absolutely.
That championship game came down to who's going to have the last ball, and it happened to be Wagner for 50.
Wright, she's got an opening. 3 is short. McKinney with the fake. Now it's Grace Hamdorf who drops a corner 3 in Minnetonka's bucket, and they're up 25-10. In what seems like typical Brian Cosgrove fashion, when you got a healthy lineup, this was often the result at Hopkins, and Minnetonka hoping to reach that trajectory themselves.
Again, this game is being played at Minnetonka's pace.
Grace Hamdorf, another 3. She's got 8.
Full timeout for Lakeville South. It's catch your breath, and let's see if we can run a couple of good offensive sets, get ourselves some good shots, slow this tempo down a little, because they're never going to stay with Minnetonka playing this pace.
Well, Hamdorf doing much better than she did yesterday scoring-wise. She's already got 8. She had 1 yesterday. Crump had 24. Of course, another staple when I got to cover the Hopkins teams over the years, they never got jaded about their success, and they never really worried about the stat distribution. It's interesting, and you hear a lot of stuff, Pat. I'm sure you've heard a lot of the chatter. There might be some surrounding Minnetonka. It's different when you're trying to dethrone the people up top. But a common thread I've seen from the teams that are in the state tournament every year, the contenders who go for those titles every year, they never let the stardom impact their morale.
You know who your best players are, and you know who should have you've got plays set up for those people when you need the big buckets. But you're never going to win in today's basketball game if you don't have some balance in your lineup. And kids, like we're seeing today with Hamdorf, you leave her open, she's hitting the shots today. And when you're in a game against a better team, and I think Minnetonka is the better team, you're just hoping those kids don't hit those shots on that night, because they hit, you're going to get beat for sure.
By the way, Minnetonka will get a rematch with De La Salle in January at the Hall of Fame Classic. Those two played each other last year here. And Minnetonka will face Providence Academy at the Community Clash. Again,
you want the best teams playing the best teams, and all these additional invitational tournaments are set up so that I can speak as a chairperson for Miss Minnesota basketball. This is what we want. We want the best teams and the best players playing each other so you can get a real measurement of who belongs.
And that game, Minnetonka-Providence, will feature a reunion of sorts. Madden Greenway knows a lot of players on this Minnetonka team from AAU. Here comes McKinney. She'll shoot two. McKinney, Crump, Greenway, all part of the North Tartan program. Lanelle Wright. So that's going to be kind of a friendly rivalry reunion.
You know, it was fun. Last year we ran the state tournament banquet for the first time in a long, long time. And it's always fun at those experiences because you see these kids come together who know each other from probably playing against each other in 3rd and 4th grade, you know, all the way up in AAU stuff. And it's almost a reunion of sorts for them where they can celebrate each other's success there. I've had the chance to MC it last year, and I'm already looking forward to this year. It's just a fun experience when all those kids get together.
And it highlights the community. That was deflected, so Lakeville South can retrieve it. It highlights the real community bond among these players. They all know each other, whether it's high school or AAU. You get to find out about yourself pretty quick as Minnetonka lines up another three for Hamdorf. I don't know if Grace is going to threaten Analea Salanoa's 10 triples today, given Minnetonka's big advantage, but it's great to have somebody like Hamdorf who can pop up a three off a touch pass.
Say she's going to get her opportunities because of the depth and strength of their lineup, but
getting the friendly bounce on the elbow, Jay, Audrey Schmidtke, the Minnetonka up 33-12. Maybe not a surprise. But another common thread, cliche if you will. You played the team in front of you, and yes, maybe this first half doesn't reveal much that we didn't already know about Minnetonka, but if you take care of business against the teams that you're favored to beat, that sets you up for those big games later on.
No doubt, and again, it's early season. You're probably going to get a chance to play a lot of kids tonight, which is great, because you get a sense of who belongs and who might be able to step in. And again, it's a long season. You have injuries. I mean, Minnetonka certainly is aware of that, having played all last year without McKinney.
Benel St. Margaret's dealing with one. Olivia Olson suffering an apparent hand injury. We'll probably find out more over the coming days, the severity of that. Kendall McGee, remember
already
her?
Out.
Yeah, right.
Again, you know, when we went to halves and we went to 4 minutes more of basketball, the hope was we develop more players. And that is the hope, is that you'll see more players. And if you have an injury or two, you've got other kids who have played and could step up for you.
Audrey Schmidtke connects on the three from the wing. And this is what Lakeville South needs. Just get a couple of buckets, try to string something together, get that confidence back.
Again, win or lose tonight, these games are good for them because it will show them when they go back to practice, here's what gave us troubles. Again, early in the season, pressure is going to bother you more than it will after Christmas. After Christmas, most teams got their press breakers down, and it's not going to be as effective. Will it still be effective for Minnetonka? Sure.
It's looking pretty effective here as Lanelle Wright drops in the short bunny. McKinney with the steal. And that's exactly what these invitationals do. And when you get these high caliber matchups like yesterday And a couple of games that we saw today here in the evening session, you learn about who you are and what you need to get better. Lanelle Wright scoring on back-to-back possessions. Minnetonka up 37-15. There's that college three you were talking about in our last game. Some players who haven't developed that range yet using that college line as a reference when they could move in another step.
A step or two back from the high school line, most kids probably are okay. A step or two back from the college line, a way different story.
And again, the changes at the college level making a bigger impact here. But I remember covering state tournaments at Target Center where they used the NBA
the pro
line.
one. It's way different.
Crump lost her balance, finds CC Nesseth. Her three is short. 3:33 to go. That being said, I do remember Michaela Bailey hitting a couple NBA threes when she was at Osseo.
Michaela could put it up from beyond downtown. She was in the suburbs on many of those jumpers.
But a lot of times I'm thinking, what are you doing? Like, you've got 3, 4, 5 feet there.
Sarah Scalia.
Well, Sarah Scalia, Matta Greenway, they could hit it from there.
Yep.
But they put in the reps to make that possible. I don't know if every prep player has done that yet.
No.
Crump on top of Ohnstad. And that's always a key, Pat. How do you contain the big name players? We've talked about that with De La Salle, Minnetonka. Minnetonka making life extremely difficult for Finley Ohnstad.
Well, I'm sure Brian has got them prepared knowing this is their best player. If we take her out of the game, we got a really good chance. And I would say if you're a good coach, you know who the other team's 1 or 2 best players are. If you could take one of them out of the game, you got a good chance.
Kate Fleechek taking a 3. Minnetonka looking for the answer.
Yeah, your strategy is I got to take one of the better players out of it. If I can do that, I've got a chance.
Right, it does put pressure. Now the onus is on others to step up.
So I said every kid knows about how many shots they're supposed to take in a game. And if you can get them taking more than they're supposed to, it throws off the whole rhythm of the other team.
.229 left, Minnetonka ball, 37-18. Minnetonka, one of the preseason contenders in a Class 4A field that, for the first time in a long time, feels more wide open. All of our picks have come from the Lake, naturally, as we have another 3.
I mean, the Lake is clearly the best conference in the state. There's no doubt about that for girls basketball, but it was Hopkins and the rest of the Lake were really good. And I think Hopkins obviously be a step down from when you talk about the players that have graduated the last couple of years from there.
Timeout Minnetonka. And Hopkins, it's a step down, but again, I feel like there's more unproven talent. They'll certainly be in the mix.
Certainly.
Hopkins and Wayzata, they'll probably meet again in Section 6. That's another given. Section 2, you've got a couple of good Lake teams that could get out of there. St. Michael Albertville should be able to get out of Section 8, at least if I'm going to make a guess.
They're definitely the favorite out there. Now that Maple Grove moved out of there a couple of years ago, because it was them, Maple Grove, Elk River has been in that mix. Moorhead,
Elk
when you
River
go back
won it
to
back
Sam
in 2016.
Habey. Yeah.
I know they're not exactly a small school, but I remember that team going back to how you don't always have to be from the big cities. But Minnetonka is certainly one of those contenders. I think we all agree it's going to come out of the Lake. We just don't exactly know which one.
Right.
And who knows? Maybe somebody will surprise me. That's happened
That's
before.
the fun of the game.
Oh,
you know, I'll bet if you had picked your 8 last year in 4A, the 8 that got there probably wouldn't have been your selection. And how many number 1s went down? You know, Maple Grove was 1 and Roseville beat them. White Bear coming out of their section, they weren't the 1.
I think Chaska was 1.
I think they were.
And 2. No, it really is. And the parity the last couple of years has been something to behold. This is Cece Nesseth, who will go to the line. Cece Nesseth, the senior.
So this is the kind of game in back-to-back nights you're going to be able to get lots of kids some playing time, which is good for this time of year.
Cece Nesseth, her favorite food is sushi. I wonder if she's hit up 7. Maybe a little young for that.
Possibly.
But she might add that to her list down the road. Splits at the line, 38-18. Here comes a take, and getting the roll is Coleman. Lakeville South, over the last few minutes, I feel like offensively their fluidity has improved, but the challenge for them is, can they get on a run like Minnetonka did early on?
Only way you get on a run is you make some stops, and they haven't been able to figure out how to shut down the Minnetonka offense. Been too many weapons tonight.
This is Crump out at the wing. Step back 3, swish! Now, I haven't seen Crump take too many shots from there, but something tells me with all of the teams she's been invited to, she's probably worked on that once or twice.
That one's probably in her repertoire now, for sure. But
talking about the exciting aspect of why we play the games, look at the NCAA in D1. It used to be UConn and everybody else. Now, take your pick. There's a good half dozen at least.
The women's game has definitely improved as far as
LSU.
depth and quality of players, for sure.
LSU look like they're going to be the runaway number 1, and then here comes South Carolina, Colorado, NC State. It's insane.
It's a lot more fun. There's no doubt about it. It's way deeper. I said the same when you talk WNBA. That's WNBA.
And that is 1,000 points for Aaliyah Crump. Pat, I don't know if I've ever been on hand to cover so many milestones in this weekend. Liv McGill got her 1,000 point last night. Marissa Frost of Centennial got 1,000 earlier today. And now Aaliyah Crump, the junior, with 1,000 and a whole lot more to come.
That is for sure. Congratulations on nice honor. Nice that they're able to stop the game and honor her.
One more time for the newest member of the 1,000-point club, number 23, Aaliyah Crump.
We saw the 1,000 sign, so we figured somebody was close. I should have been a little smarter and asked which one, but you know what? We found out.
I can tell you who it is.
Well, you probably keep tabs on this. Again, you're on the Miss Basketball Committee, and
I've got Kevin Anderson with me. He keeps me up on all that stuff, too. He's our great historian.
He's also on the Miss Basketball Committee.
He is for sure.
And I am not smart enough to pry any inklings on who might the 2025 front list look like, but I have to think Aaliyah Crump is certainly putting together a solid resume. Whatever happens with her, she's got a bright future ahead. You were talking WNBA 3. We might see her in the WNBA someday.
She's got the athletic body for it.
Here comes Coleman.
So when I started watching the WNBA, the athletes were unbelievable, but there wasn't the skill level to attack it. And now the skill level has increased so much in women's basketball since it started back in the late 80s.
Here's one of them, Aaliyah Crump. Can't hit another 3. But Minnetonka will get one more chance on the O board. Crump again. Harley Woke with the O board. Crump with the chance to score at the line. And I don't know where Crump would rank among the athletes that Cosgriff has coached, and he's had several, going back to Leslie Knight, Nia Holly, 2 Miss Basketball winners, Paige Beckers, another one. And the so-called mid-majors that were tough cookies, real sharp athletes as well. Lele Chacolis, KK Adams. Nia Coffey didn't win Miss Basketball, but she's doing pretty well for herself. I have a feeling Crump has a chance to be part of that long lineage.
She just looks like a basketball player.
I can't say the same for myself. That's why I'm up here.
But back in the day.
Yes. Crump won't beat the buzzer, but a great first half for her. 15 points, past 1,000, and Minnetonka up 45-20. Pat, the way you and I have been talking, this score doesn't shock us per se, but give credit to Minnetonka using that defense and their offensive skill set to full advantage.
If it's a Brian Cosgrove team, the defense will lead to the offense, and it has tonight.
We'll see where it can lead them in the second half when we come back. This is the Pat Patterson Thanksgiving tip-off. Minnetonka leads Lakeville South 45-20. Twin Cities Sports Broadcasting and a whole lot more. That's what you get from TSB Television. We provide long-lasting digital coverage of your favorite athletes from the preps to the pros. Dazzling moves. Holloman, good if it goes. Yes! Game winners. James, she's in trouble. Finds James, toss shot, it goes in! And everything in between. Before we let you go, do you want to say hi to anybody?
Oh, I don't know. That put me on the spot there.
If you want to connect with our audience, visit us at patreon.com/TSB Television or sponsor our coverage through PayPal and Cash App. Thank you for watching. Mike Peden and Pat Barrett back here. Minnetonka leads Lakeville South 45-20. Aaliyah Crump 15 first half points. She passed 1,000, and Pat, I'm guessing this is more luck than anything, but I can't recall. I've done a lot of opening weekend coverage where we had 3 1,000-point scores, and then 3 players who never had 30 points in a game before reached that mark. I think that says something about how talented these athletes are, the skill level they have coming in compared to the old days that you've referred, the early years of the WNBA and so forth, and just the resolve these youngsters have to improve, better themselves, and get themselves in top form.
There's no doubt that the top players today are better than the old top players, and there's more of them. I still wish our game had more good teams. There's such a have and have not. And but the top players, there's no doubt about it, are better and better every year.
And in some cases, it creates that self-sustaining virtuous cycle. There are others, you and I have been there, where you kind of know teams that have one good chance of winning state, for example, and you know, like after that, it might be rough seas, but I don't think Minnetonka is going to be one of those teams.
Now, the ability of kids to move so much now, too, gives everyone else. I mean, the good kids tend to find each other. So you don't see as many community teams getting to the state tournament maybe as you used to.
We did see Tori McKinney take another steal, down court for 2 more. McKinney's got 8.
I think her presence will help them this year.
Well, like you said, it offers another dynamic, and I've noticed the top teams, the ones that are contenders, usually have 3 go-to presences, 3 figures. In the Brian Cosgrove years at Hopkins, it was the whole starting 5 pretty much. But when Stillwater had their peak, making it to the championship round, it was Carlin Scalia and Alexis Pratt. With Minnetonka, we've mentioned this before, Crump, McKinney, and Wright. Providence Academy, you've got Madden Greenway, Hope Counts, Brooke Honecker, and that Benilde St. Margaret's championship team. It was McGee until she got hurt at the end, Sierra Lumpkin, who
stepped
played a
up
big role,
huge at the end of that game.
And Olivia Olson. Even in Class A, Zubich and Hallie Savala, Sage Gagnon from that team.
Gagnon was a huge piece of that championship team. She really gave him the piss and vinegar that made the tough plays.
And now I don't know if 3 is the magic number per se, but it feels like as I go back and look at the teams now that perform well, they all have 3 options.
I was talking, if the other team's got two good players, if you can shut down one of them, you really got a good chance to win the game. But when they've got three, it's pretty tough to shut down three players.
Crump with the steal off the Minnetonka pressure, puts on the brakes, and will pad her rebounding and point totals there. I don't believe that miss was on purpose.
I don't think so.
McKinney, another steal. Now it's Wright's turn for the fast break score.
Said as good as McKinney's defensive presence is tonight, she has involved everyone out on the floor. And that's really what she brings that makes this team so much better.
Going back to the De La Salle game, for example, with Minnetonka, when Jordan Johnson had to sit out early, Tori McKinney didn't come back, and she wasn't at full strength when she did return last year for Minnetonka. You really see the changes, the upgrade, if you will, having McKinney in there. It's not just because she's quick. And when I covered her in AAU, she wasn't always the most explosive scorer, but she makes this machine work.
Clearly, that's one of the pieces. The other one is when you take a great player out of the lineup, it changes the food chain. The food chain, who gets guarded by who, what plays are run for certain people, the whole dynamic of the offense changes.
And that's why we talk so much about injuries, and even in preseason as Crump gets the ball after Harley Woke was scrapping for it. McKinney pulls up, rebound, Audrey Schmidtke. That's why we were discussing what to look for in 3A and who the favorite might be, because we all knew, okay, Kendall McGee may not be back in the lineup for an extended time. Aaliyah Crump almost had a razzle-dazzle play in the highlight reel.
Larry Bird would have been proud of that pass. That was Showtime magic or Larry Bird back in the 80s.
Paige Beckers pulled that off with regularity. And I bring this up, not that I want to compare Crump to Beckers because that's not my style, but I'm wondering if she's going to have a fun word with Tori after this, because I remember interviewing Paige and Amaya Battle, and Paige had a similar behind-the-back pass. Amaya couldn't finish, and Paige jokingly said, "Why'd you bring her out? She cost me an assist."
It may come up in conversation.
It very well could. I would not expect any ill will from that conversation.
No, that's one for fun. You can keep bringing up, though.
And some players have had fun with my commentary over the years. I do see a few Lakeville South folks in attendance, but remember, there's a lot of connections here with AAU. And for Lakeville North, it's also a chance to get a glimpse of who they've got. I saw Andy Burke from here.
I saw Tara Stark sitting over there too, watching. So,
well, I think everyone knows in the Lake Conference anyway. Hopkins and Minnetonka, that's going to be another series. Hopkins came up a bit short today with Dowling Catholic, but we know that's going to be a good rivalry. The Lake Conference, so many
tough teams.
So many matchups.
Yep. Well, state tournament last year in 4A, it was the first, second, and third were all Lake Conference teams.
And you've got coaches with strong pedigrees throughout among those top-ranked units. Tara Starks didn't have a lot of high school experience, as Nesseth will go to the line, but she was an integral component and still is with the Metro Stars AAU program. A lot of the Hopkins kids would play there. Brian Cosgriff, we've discussed him at length, but he won a whole lot of state titles at Hopkins. Ken Hamry,
outstanding coach in our game.
And Ellen Weesey has done a tremendous job making Eden Prairie a consistent contender.
Won a state title at Orono and moved over to Eden Prairie, and she's done well there.
Nasseth makes both free throws. And you were mentioning this earlier with St. Michael Abbeville moving to the Lake Conference. Ken Hamry was joking with me when that happened. He said, be careful what you wish for, because they wanted to play tougher opponents. But you have to think that prepared them for the state tournament run last year, facing Hopkins a third time.
It prepared them every year since they've been there, because, you know, if you're in a lesser conference, and there's no doubt the Mississippi 8 compared to the Lake Conference is night and day, you can't go almost 2 months without good competition and get better. It's hard to practice when you know you don't have to practice very hard, because we're going to win easily this week, whoever it might be. The Lake Conference has been way better. And you have to be good enough to compete. You know, you can look at Buffalo moved with them, and it's been more of a struggle for Buffalo. Don't have the same talent level right now to play that way.
Well, Becker comes to mind too. The Mississippi 8, they beat up on everybody. That's why they would schedule as tough as they did outside of the conference.
He's smart. He plays anyone and everyone. Hopkins a couple of times a year to get better, and I give him a credit, because that's what you need to do. If you're going to believe you're a championship team, you have to play the best so you can see where you need to improve.
Minnetonka can't get the shot off there. All right, take that back. That is Minnetonka ball. So they'll have 2 seconds. All right. Kevin Anderson was talking about this, what he looks forward to, running these late shot clock sets. I'd say that was a good one.
Yeah. Draw that one up. Let's throw it to our good player right by the rim. Yeah, good play.
Going back to the options, like you said, the food chain. When you've got 3 go-tos, that makes the selection pretty easy. Aaliyah Crump.
You're guarding a good player down on the block there. You have to get into their body so they can't use their athleticism and out-jump you.
And Crump, this surprises me a bit, Pat, and maybe I'm a bit naive to all of this, but folks like Crump or Tessa Johnson even last year, big-name players. There's Crump. We've seen this once or twice, and we'll see it again. A lot of accolades, but not the following that Paige Becker's got. And I don't know, maybe because
it's not fair to compare anyone to Paige Becker. And as good a scorer as Paige Becker was, she made everyone else so much better at both ends of the floor.
And I'm a little surprised that more publicity hasn't been given to the likes of Tessa Johnson, who fulfilled a similar role at STMA as Lanelle Wright misses the 3.
Well, Dawn Staley found her. If you wanted recognition, you've got it.
That's all that matters, right?
Yes.
Kira Keegan hits the elbow J, and look at the Minnetonka bench. Everyone applauding loudly for that. Now, the sound does reverberate a little more off these walls, but that was a pretty enthusiastic reaction, and that's always good to see.
No doubt about it. You want your bench into the game, and when they're cheering for each other, you know you're at a good place.
Right. You want them to feel like, hey, they're a part of this, and maybe they don't get the headliners. It's a discussion I was mentioning that maybe gets into points or areas that are hard to define, but like I said, I'm a little surprised we haven't seen more players get the recognition that Paige Beckers did, because they were just as good in their own way. But as you said before, with Tessa Johnson, you're going to South Carolina, that's a pretty affirming statement.
And the fact they were able to beat Hopkins in the state championship game, and Hopkins had a great basketball team.
Danny Coleman will go to the line. Well, I remember going back, Lakeville North, Andy Bergvam, when you had Rachel Banham and Cassie Rochelle. Maybe they weren't household names outside of the writers and broadcasters who follow them, but Rachel turned that into quite a career.
I would say so. I think I've seen her face hanging on a banner.
Yeah, there are a couple of players who I think really captivated audiences at a national level. Paige Taylor Hill before her. Locally, I'll never forget the crowds that followed Carly Wagner at NRHEG. Yep. I went down to the Super 60 event in Owatonna, rematch between NRHEG and Washburn. The crowd was almost all black and red.
Well, I said the game between her and Rebecca Dahlman's senior year was amazing.
And let's not forget about all the other Hopkins athletes not named Paige Beckers. Amaya Battle won Miss Basketball.
Nia Holly, Leslie Knight.
And Nia Coffey didn't win, but she's still in the WNBA. And none of them got that plaudit. None of them are griping or complaining about it. And I know this because I'm friends with some of them, Nia Holly in particular, but it is interesting how that all works out. I'm not asking that Aaliyah Crump gets 1 million followers overnight, but it's one of those interesting discussions. And I'm wondering, because we had Paige Beckers and Jalen Suggs in the same year, it put Minnesota on a national platform for a good while.
No doubt. You keep doing the right stuff, people notice.
That's the old saying, if you're good enough, they'll find you.
They will for sure.
And thanks to the increased presence in streaming broadcast coverage, it is easier than ever. I've had coaches.
I was telling you, it doesn't matter the sport
Right.
I'm broadcasting. I can go out either on YouTube or some streaming service and find anybody. And now with seeding, next year we go to being able to seed all eight teams in every class at state tournament. Well, it used to be comparing Roseau to Goodhue was really hard. Now, with all the breakdown tournaments, the invitationals, the Pat Patterson, those teams get together. Everybody knows everyone. If you haven't seen video on someone or seen them in person, you haven't been trying.
McKinney for three. Got it. It's 64-24. I think Minnetonka has this one locked up. And it will be a start again, maybe not a full reveal of who they are, what they can be, but you got to start somewhere. And
this has been a good start. These two games.
Your first weekend is one of the best ways you can start out. Aaliyah Crump, another showcase of her fluency. Like you said, she looks like an athlete. She plays like one. And much like Paige, Tessa, and the others, Tori McKinney drops in the elbow, Jay. She's level-headed, at least in my interactions with her and all of the greats that I've been blessed to see. They all were level-headed. Oftentimes, it was people like us who were giving them all this hype than the players themselves. But there's a reason for that.
Sure.
We like to tip our hat. That's Piper Ohnstad, the 8th grader, who gets on the board. No, we want to acknowledge these players and all the work they put in, because with all the time commitments involved, I was talking, here's Crump for three. Is there anything else you can say that would not summarize Crump by this point?
She's
that
having a
would
pretty good
summarize
game.
that we haven't said. I should rephrase that. Anything you could say that hasn't been said that would summarize her game. Here's another three-point try for Ohnstad, Piper Ohnstad, that is. Just a casual 28 points.
If you didn't think they had a chance to compete for a state title, from what you've seen tonight, they're in the discussion.
I think more will come into light, as it always does, when Minnetonka has a chance to play Providence Academy. Play
Just get back to the conference schedule.
Right, and then when you get to the lake.
You'll see night in and night out. And I said non-conference is a good measuring stick. However, it's when those teams who know you and prepare for you, they know your plays, they know your inbound plays, they know your calls from the bench, that's when you find out just how good you really are.
And for a lot of other schools, it's usually the non-conference slate. I say the Lake Conference for Minnetonka because they're going to see a lot of the teams they could likely face in the state tournament. And I am happy we have a jump ball. I am happy that we are going to go back to the 1 through 8 seeding.
It's been long overdue.
I don't think you're alone in that sentiment.
No.
And we've seen over the last few years, I don't want to compare the high school tournament to the college tournament because there's some different components involved, but look at the number of upsets we've seen in the D1 tournaments in both men and women over the last few years. I would think if I'm on that committee that is in charge of running state tournaments, that I wouldn't want to capture just a little bit of that.
Well, the thing I'll say, the last couple of years, we've had number ones get beat in the first round by teams that weren't the 8 best team. And to me, that's the unfair part. I think you deserve to play the team in the bracketing that's fair. And that's the way I want it. Especially basketball is the exception with hockey, is that you don't get on TV till the semifinals in basketball. And girls hockey, you don't get on TV till you get to semifinals. So it's grossly unfair to be the number 1 seed. And I might, in a deep class, have to play a really good team in the first round to try and get on TV, because that feels like the state tournament when you're on television.
Well, I know you and I help fill in that gap with our work at NSPN.
We do, but everyone wants to be on 45.
Right.
Much as NSPN is the station.
I don't think you and I would mind if 45 called us up either.
If they called me and needed a substitute announcer, I'm available.
I will put out my feeler as well, my call out. Sydney Cummings and Josie Cho scoring on the last couple of possessions for Minnetonka.
It is really nice, though, that with the streaming services that people get the opportunity to see so many games. I know if you're a grandparent out of town or whatever, you can get into any of the streaming stuff. We're NSPN, so obviously I'd plug them. We're a great one to have.
It helps when you're on the committee and you can't keep track of just one team. You got to follow everybody on that short list.
So those kind of partnerships that are developing between high school sports and streaming services is great for our game. And I said, I wish boys and girls played different nights more often, because then the boys could see just how good the girls are, and vice versa. They get a chance to watch the boys, because I know when I coached, our girls love to go to boys' games too.
And they say the biggest fans of the game are fellow players, NBA, WNBA.
And they should be. They should be. I mean, it's a basketball community.
And NBA fans are often the biggest WNBA fans.
Well, you can see them sitting courtside often, vice versa at either game.
And to go back to the seeding conversation, for me, again, capturing a bit of that, where, like you said, a 1 seed may not play the 8th best team, but on the flip side, I'd love the opportunity to think, hey, how cool would it be? How much publicity will we get if an 8 seed is able to beat a 1?
Oh, sure.
How often does that happen? Maybe not as much at the high school level.
Not very often, but
FDU and UMBC. They got the limelight for a brief moment, but they still got it. They were the talk of the basketball fandom. And in the women's game, we've seen more low-seeded teams make a run. It's not like...
Well, the men's game always used to be, you feared to be the 4 against the 13 or the 5 against the 12. And those are starting to happen in women's basketball now. The 12s and 13s are occasionally beating the 4s and 5s. And that makes the game better. It shows the depth. It shows the spread of talent now across the spectrum.
Aubrey Beauchamp scoring for Lakeville South. Right, now it's... You got to be ready to play no matter what seed.
Yep.
As Kira Keegan scores the 15-footer.
That parity is good for everyone.
There was a time when the 1 seed never lost to a 16. That's no more.
Yeah,
it happened first in the women's game, but maybe it'll happen again soon as we get a substitution timeout here.
It certainly becomes more of a possibility.
And I know, 10 years ago, that was the biggest complaint is, you can put all the number 1s through in the women's tournament, for example. And that still might happen, but not because they are that dominant over everybody else. So.
Yeah, it's not like it used to be, for sure.
And even the last couple of years, I remember talking with Eric Bugard saying the fact that we had different picks for our 3A, 4A title winners says a lot about the growth in competition. And even this year, you asked me who my favorites were. It's like I have my guesses. But there are a couple of teams.
It's a handful of people other than maybe Providence.
Providence is the only one that I would take every time.
They might be the best team in the state, and they're 2A.
Right. Class A, you've got 2 off the bat. 3A, well, that could change, possibly, in a big way. 4A, I think Kevin put it best in the breakdown preview. Maybe not Hopkins.
Yep. And when's the last time we said that?
But he didn't outright say, oh, they aren't going to win it. It's like, maybe.
No.
Not. So,
They're still going to be very good.
right. We all think Minnetonka, but who knows?
It's a long season.
We're going to have free throws here for Ashlyn Williams. And again, maybe this result isn't surprising, but your thoughts, Pat, seeing Minnetonka start 2-0 and seeing just how smooth, how polished they look, having McKinney, a fully healthy McKinney, back in the lineup to help orchestrate this team, offense and defense.
There's no doubt having a great player back in your lineup when you went this long. And sometimes, we talked about Olsen may be hurt now. We'll find out. But if you know they're going to come back, sometimes you get better because everyone else has to step up. It's
Right.
that food chain deal where I have to step up a level and play different. And then when the player comes back, we're all better prepared and throw that great player back in the mix. And now we become even more dangerous.
What's the old saying? Next man up or next woman
man up. Yep, next woman up. Whatever game you're playing, that's the nature now. The games become so fast and so physical. Doesn't matter the sport. The chance of injury is there, even with the better training.
You never know when your opportunity will come, and Minnetonka made the most of this one tonight. They'll go to 2-0 with a 77-31 win over Lakeville South. And Aaliyah Crump, 28, 1,000 points, another milestone in what I think will be a long list of them before her prep career's through.
That is for sure.
We'll see if we can get a word with Aaliyah Crump before we wrap it up here at Hamline University. Minnetonka going to 2-0 over Lakeville South at the Pat Patterson Thanksgiving tip-off. And I'm joined by Aaliyah Crump, another athlete who passed 1,000 career points tonight. What seemed like a casual 28 in a runaway win over Lakeville South. I know there's a lot of work that goes into that, but what does it mean to notch another milestone in the opening weekend of the season?
I think it means a lot just being able to play with this team. They support me, they have my back, so I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. But yeah, it's just another milestone that I'm really grateful for.
And this is another footnote in what has been a pretty stellar year for you. You got to play with Team USA at one of the junior tournaments, if I'm correct. Great AAU season. How has that summer session fueled your passion, your desire as you enter your junior year here?
Experiences like USA, just being able to play with a bunch of great players, they motivate you every day. So a lot of them are my best friends, so being able to surround yourself with those type of people, I think that's what's helped me grow the most. And then just the coaches I've been around, they have a lot of experience. They've coached, people like Paige, all the big names, so learning from them has been really helpful.
And one person who was helpful tonight, Tori McKinney, she's fully healthy now. Yeah. Back in action, and we saw the difference she can make when she's out on the floor. How does having her help improve the offensive fluidity and defensive fluidity for Minnetonka?
I think especially on defense, that's where she really helps her team. She brings the energy on that side, but offensively she can kind of do a little bit of everything. So getting her the ball, she can create shots, she can make her own shot, and then she's open for the three and can knock that down. So she's been really useful this year, and I'm happy that I've been able to play with her.
And you're used to big spotlights as we've seen this year. You may have seen Minnetonka was a potential preseason favorite. What do you think that says about your team, and how do you make sure you don't let predictions and what people say in newspapers and the like, how do you make sure that doesn't overwhelm you at this part of the year?
Yeah, playing for cause every day at practice, we're going to work hard. We're going to work on defense. We're going to try to get better at all the little things. So I think that's been a big thing this year, just going back into practice this week, tuning up the little things, just working hard. I think that's going to be the biggest thing for us this year.
And last year was your first year with Brian Cosgriff, the head coach. This is year two. What do you think is different now that you've had a year to learn the ropes and get familiar with his system, and what are you looking forward to most as you continue this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things playing for him, I know that he's going to push me, but he really wants the best of me. So that's one thing that that's kind of grown on me, I guess. So that's been a big thing this year is I know he has my back and I know he trusts me. But yeah, I think that's going to be a huge thing for us this year is just knowing that he trusts us and we can kind of take our roles and do as we please. But we should come out with a good season. So.
Well, one thing I'm not going to do over the next few months is challenge any of you to a sprint race. Between you and McKinney, I think I would get lapped in pretty quick fashion, but it was really impressive to watch. And how do you think speed plays a part in your game?
Yeah, just transition points. Those are where you get your easy points, your open layups. So we're not trying too hard to score. So, like I said, Tori's going to play hard on the defensive end, get us some steals, and then we're going to get those open layups in transition.
And before we go, do you want to say hi to anybody?
Just my family that was here today. Thank you for all the support. So
a lot of family and quite a few friends. I guess someone came all the way out to see you get 1,000 tonight on her birthday. So you're developing a following here, Aaliyah.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Well, I hope more of that comes your way. Thanks for stopping by. Congrats on the win. And I guess it's on to 2,000 points now, right?
Yeah, thank you.
We'll find out if she gets there in due time. But she will celebrate a 2-0 start for Minnetonka tonight, and that will wrap up our holiday coverage from Hamline University. So for the rest of our crew, I'm Mike Peden. Thank you for watching.